Hey man, I'm ready to go.
All right, I'll come up here and introduce you. We have the live stream going. Hey there, Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener. Welcome to Green Room Live. Welcome to all our internet buddies. Randy Ritchie, Malibu Compost. Everybody knows who you are. You can just go for it. I'm just gonna go sit down and you tell us what you gotta say.
All right, thanks, Bob. Hey, okay, guys. So we've been chatting here a little bit. For you guys that are joining us on the internet, that Al Gore invented.
And God bless him.
Ask him; he'll tell you. Just like Hillary invented the Me Too movement, I heard. Anyway, sidetrack. My name is Randy Ritchie. I am one of the founders of Malibu Compost, and my other partner is Colin Riley. We founded it together. I was going to talk a little bit about Malibu Compost, why we do what we do, how we started this company, why we started this company. Because everybody grows, right? I'm sure everybody here that's in the audience is a grower or grows something, has an idea of how to grow, what they do in their mix, what they're going to do. So I'm not here to sell you anything, okay? I don't want to sell you anything. If anything, maybe I'm going to sell you some thoughts, So Malibu Compost came about. We formed our company in 2009, and my background was that I started doing landscaping when I was a kid in high school. And I worked for some really, top landscape architects and some guys that did some really great, beautiful landscape installs. And so I did that all the way through high school, into college. And what happened for me was I was working basically in this company, and we had we had all these movie stars and rock star people that were clients, and more and more, we were getting more and more of those clients, and the guys that were the old guys that were had hair like mine now, in our company were grouchy, and they didn't have any patience for any of those clients, and so they said to me when I was going to college, hey, we have a new entertainment division and you're running it. And so basically I was going to college and running all of these landscape jobs with a bunch of crazy clients. I mean, we had some very interesting clientele, and that's a different story. But so I was doing that. I had a customer down the road that said to me, "Hey, we're going to grow 2 acres of food in Malibu." She was writing which is an oxymoron, a raw food cookbook. Whatever. And she wanted to grow food. Right, so that was where my journey began in biodynamics. I met Alan York at Benzinger Vineyards, and then and when I put my hands in his compost pile, I had a full-on out-of-body experience, like holding this, decomposted dairy cow manure in my hand. I was literally going, wow, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I know my life is about to change, and I don't know why, because I'm just holding manure. But also there was what I didn't realize at that point in time was the energy that was in the biodynamic preparations and the life that was in that compost. I was feeling maybe for the first time as a landscaper who'd been there his whole life, right? I was feeling the live soil, really alive soil in that compost. Colum, on the other hand, my partner, grew up on a biodynamic farm in a biodynamic community, Camp Kipperton Hills in Pennsylvania. So he grew up making compost as a kid. He grew up Waldorf educated, his whole thing was Rudolf Steiner and biodynamics. And so today, we have farms in St. Paul, we have a new farm in McMinnville, we've got a farm in Oakdale, California, and I think Colin is probably, he would never say this, I think he's probably one of the best compost makers in the world. And on a large scale, it's almost like growing, a lot of people can grow a plant or 2 plants or 3 plants, and then can go scale up to maybe, 20 plants or 30 plants. And people can do that with compost too. So you can take compost and start, making, I make incredibly great compost on the small farms that we work on and at my own house. I make really good compost. And I do both passive compost, where I let everything just kind of, simmer down and take a year and you got some great stuff. And then I do other stuff where I actually jack up the nitrogen, and I got thermophilic compost going at home. So you can do it. Colum is that guy on a farm that can scale that small level of compost to all of a sudden, when you're on, you see like 2 and 3 acre pads of compost, and you've got several of those going. It's a whole different thing to keep that flow going, that consistency going, the energy going, the intention of what you're doing going. And that's really like the whole biggest thing for me with Malibu Compost is intention. Like, what are we doing, what we're doing for, like why? I see a lot of people in the cannabis industry, and it makes me sad that a lot of people are in it, they think they're in it for the money. My experience has been when you do things for money, they fail. And they fail because it's not a core value that you're touching into. It's like okay, getting money, seeking money. There's nothing wrong with it, and I don't believe in being a church mouse either. I believe in like having, earning an income in a good way, in a way that you feel positive and that you're giving something back, and that's a good thing, and that you're doing the best that you can do. So for me, like at Malibu, our goal was to do what we could do for the people, planet, and animals of the planet. That was in our mission statement. And so we figured that if we kept doing the right thing and make really good compost and be really consistent with what we're doing and care about the community and become part of the community, then we would either be profitable or we'd be broke and out of business.
And really well loved.
Yeah, and loved. Colin says all the time, hey, sometimes we're friend rich and cash poor, and other times we're kind of, we kind of balance out, But one of the things that's been really nice about Malibu Compost is we've been able to, through classes and community outreach and working, we started working with the Martin Luther King School up in Berkeley. Ellis Waters had the Shape and East Foundation. We started like right out the gate donating money to that school because they had a program in the summer to teach teachers how to teach kids how to grow food. And that to us seemed like a worthwhile endeavor. So like money goes off of every bag of Malibu Compost that we sell goes to the Edible Schoolyard Foundation. And to me, having teachers be able to teach a kid how to grow food and for our company, that's an incredibly positive and powerful thing. I'm still like a kid, I know I was in my own garden at home, and we were, I was out picking stuff out of the garden on Easter, and to make a salad out of my own garden is still today super exciting. It's super amazing, and the romaine that in that salad, like I never had romaine. I've been growing romaine forever. I've never had romaine lettuce taste that incredible. It was sweet. It was just that first just light, nice leaf. It was just unreal. And that's exciting and that's important. And I don't know, it's everything that we do in Malibu Compost is for a reason. There's a purpose behind it. So when we started this company, I was a landscaper who couldn't find good soil. All I could find was stuff at a soil yard that was just inert at best and probably toxic, if I wanted to do the research. So we wanted to have something that was clean, something that people could augment their compost if they were composting at home with to add biology into their soil at home and to increase the biology, because most people don't know. Most people in the grow industry know, but most people like in regular gardening and at nurseries, and even when we go to like horticulture societies and talk, people have no idea why they're actually why they want to feed the microbes in their soil. They have no idea that microbes break down organic matter. And these are people that are in gardening. They don't understand like what happens at a soil level. So we wanted to be able to give a food source for the microbial population. We wanted to have something that was really, really beyond and a premium level, because today most people feel they don't trust the organic labeling. It's something that's happened now. People are not trusting organic. They're walking into Whole Foods or they're walking into Trader Joe's, they're seeing stuff that's labeled as organic, and they're going, is it really? And I know I have that experience all the time. I'm always looking for the stores that have the farms, what farm it is, and I'll write it down or I'll look it up on my smartphone. Like, who is this farm? Who are they owned by? What are they doing? research it at my farmers markets in my own community. I ask people like, what are your protocols? Like, how are you guys actually growing? What are you doing? Because we started testing for GMOs. We started running genetic IDs. So we were, I think we're still the only company that does that. We run genetic IDs, we run toxicology panels, we run biologic analysis, we run a lot of good basic soil analysis, because we wanted people to know that if they were going to grow food for their family, if they had somebody who was sick, if they were going to grow cannabis for their family, or if they, that they had an option to get something that was really, truly 100% real organic, true organic, not just BS organic. And people don't realize that we get stuff because of the NOP program, the National Organic Program, where all our organic rules come from, and the National Organic Standard Board. There are things on their list that they have of what you can use in organic food production that is absolutely not organic, like in any way, shape, or form, in any world that I come from. It's like where you can take literally, because it was alive, it's decomposed, you can take chicken manure from a conventional chicken farm, and you can, after it's decomposed, it's now all of a sudden organic chicken manure. So, are the inputs organic? No. Did the chickens, did they eat organic feed? No. So that's one of the reasons we run genetic IDs. We're looking at the feedstock. Are they, because in conventional ag, the corn, the soy, the alfalfa is all fed GMO feedstock. And what's really scary about that, people will go like, yeah, but you can cook that out. You can cook the GMO. Yeah, you can cook the corn out and the soy out, the kernels, the bean out. But you're not going to cook out the glyphosate, the broad spectrum herbicide that they spray that with. And all of those crops are sprayed. So for fast acting crops, anybody know a fast acting crop? Quick uptake, right? Gets into the soft tissue of the plant, and what do you got? And nobody tests for that. Nobody looks at that. Nobody looks at like, wow, okay, so why do we have glyphosate residue in cereal? It's happening all the time. Why are we finding, in mother's milk, why are we finding glyphosate residue? Why are we, why listen to we have all these kids, man, that, have different, if you when they run blood tests on them, that have glyphosate residue in their bloodstream. And the ads are still on. They're still on TV, and people are still going into Home Depot and buying that stuff, and doing all that stuff, So our goal was to create a company that could hopefully, just do the right thing, test for the right things, and give people an option that would allow them to know and feel comfortable that they were buying a product and working with people that we're trying to do the right thing. And that's another thing I think that's very important. I know to the people that work in our company, everybody that works in our company, they're good people. They're like really good people, and they care about this, and they care about the message. And so I look at what companies do I support? So I look at a lot of companies and like, do I want to give them money? Is this a company that I want to, do I want to support those values? Is this something that I really, choose to help facilitate? So that's something else too that we do all the time at Malibu Compost. We're looking at like, hey, who do we want to work with? Who are we going to support? Is this a good place for us to spend our money? Do we care, about what these guys are doing? And do they actually care? Do they have a good mission statement? What's up with that, So, those are the things that, to us that are important as a company, and that's why we started Malibu Compost. And now, we started out with, a bag of compost, and now we're in over 700 stores. We're doing a farm in Pennsylvania. We got the 2 farms here, the farm in California. We're setting up a second one there. And what's happening is it's growing, so like this thing is just starting to grow, and none of us are driving Ferraris to work. We reinvest the money that we earn back into our company. and we reinvest in equipment and all those kinds of things, so we're looking at that stuff, and that's kind of where our heads are at. So product side, if you're looking for a good compost, you're looking for something to add to your mix, run some Malibu in there, run it at 20, 25%, top dress with it, run it with teas. It works great. I've had a lot of people, kind of funny, that have hit me up in SoCal that have said, will Scott get mad if I run Malibu Compost with nectar? And I was like, no. Scott they sell nectar at his store. Like, I think they'd be fine with that. It's kind of funny, but I've had people that have actually literally hit me up and said, are they going to get mad if we do this? And I'm like, no. So pretty much any soil you're running, add some Malibu to it. 3 bags of that to a bag of Malibu. If you're making a soil mix, that's a great base for your soil mix. If you're doing a running teas, I run teas all the time, and I use that as my base in my compost teas, and that's the main. And that's what we do on all the stuff that we consult on. It's the stuff that we do on everything that we work on. Is we're really just trying to get the biology back into the soil. And Rudolf Steiner, was talking about in the 20s. He was talking about why it was important to get the biodynamic preparations into the soil was because there wasn't enough nutrient in the soil. This is in the 20s that the soil wasn't.
Already they were noticing this.
They were noticing it, and that the food wasn't nutrient dense enough, right? And that part of the thing that he thought was that if people didn't get enough nutrient dense food, that they couldn't actually become what they were supposed to be in terms of the way they think, the way they perform mentally, physically, and also the way they perform spiritually.
Makes sense.
Right? So he was thinking like, hey, there's not, and so, I look at that and you're like, that's a really far out thought, in 1923 that he was having that conversation with people about this, and that it was important to get the preparations into as much land as possible to increase the nutrient uptake in plants.
Was this because the modern agriculture was depleting the soil?
Yes,
already?
and that's where we're starting. In Germany in the 20s, that's where we're starting. So you started having monocropping, you had convention, you started having some of the chemical fertilization, and what happened was you saw booms in harvest, but then you also saw issues that were starting to happen in pest issues, disease issues, things like that. And that's where Steiner kind of came in and started the whole kind of idea of this whole concept of utilizing the compost, using the preparations, and enlivening the soil. That's where that whole kind of concept came from. And so I love that, biodynamics looks at the soil as a living organism. It takes that, today, a lot of people talk about living soil. I was just in, Colorado, and everybody in Indo Expo was talking about living soil. And I'm like, what would be the purpose of having anything other than living soil?
If you're trying to make something live,
right? For me, like, why would you not have living soil, right? It makes no sense. And so I'm happy to think that, and see that people are starting to actually, care about that. Like that's like in Colorado, that made me really happy because a lot of people there have been coming out of growing hydroponically, growing synthetically.
Pure, you want it clean, don't want anything alive in there, speaking of a substrate to grow on.
Exactly.
It's absurd.
And so, now, you got people that are thinking about, okay, I want as much life, as much biology as I can get into my soil, which has been, and there's a lot of great, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great growers in Colorado. There's a lot of guys I know that are incredibly good growers. And they grow, and they've been growing in living soil forever. But like, I just thought it was kind of funny at the Indo Expo, that was like the new moniker, like living soil. For me, it's like, that's the whole goal. That's the bottom line. That's why, we've gone into a lot of sites. We're lucky too, because we get hired as consultants on landscape projects, big ones, and golf courses, and food farms. We do a lot of food farming as well. And we get to come in and, we get to transition farms that have been fed chemically, and to go ahead and bring the soil back to life, and to all of a sudden, when you're teaching people how to flush 26 or 30 or 50 acres with teas, and then to start top dressing, and then to start using compost in those areas, and then just all of a sudden you take your base soil analysis that you had from day one, and you look at that base soil analysis up against where you're at 2 and 3 years later. It's a lifetime of difference, you know, to see what can happen, and then to then start to dial it in where you can go ahead and grow different types of crops. You know, some of the stuff that might be more bacterial or more fungal, you know, your fast-acting bacterial crops, boom, you're growing your food, your veggies. But like some of the larger things on the orchards, now we're looking at how we go ahead and use the compost, and sometimes we age the compost, so we'll actually let it sit on the farm and age further, and it goes fungal. So we use that then as a fungal dress instead of a bacterial dress. And so it's really cool to see that in, you know, so like 9 years, right, we've gone from like having 1 bag of compost that we didn't know if anybody would ever buy it, because we thought like, there's a chance that people are gonna go like buy a compost. Yeah, I don't think so, that was a great idea. To like now we have this company that's, you know, kind of flourishing, and a lot of people that, something that's amazing to me is we have people literally that hashtag us every day, like hashtag Malibu Compost on social media. Like I know a lot of people that own soil companies, and like a lot, especially a lot of the ones that you see in, you know, Home Depot or big nurseries, stuff like that. They would flip out if they had a customer base that would hashtag their company, right? You know, they'd be like, "Are you kidding me?" You know, like, and it's like, and how many of those people do you think I've actually ever met? Like. Maybe a handful of them or a tenth of them, you know, because I travel a lot, so, you know, but I mean, still, like, there's thousands of people that do that, and that says to me on some level that we're doing something that's working, and that people are following the message, and people are like following what we're doing and like what we're doing, and they like that we rescue cows, and that we care, you know. I really think that if more companies just stop for a second, or more growers or more gardeners or more farmers just stop for a second and went like, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I really doing this? You know, you know, and I can tell you, Cole and I both, you know, we wake up in different beds in different homes, but I wake up every day stoked. You know, like totally stoked on what we get to do. I'm totally grateful and feel like we're blessed and we're honored. And I know he feels the same way, you know, and never, ever, ever, like so rarely, except we get on a phone call with our CFO, do we ever talk about money? We don't talk about money. Like we're talking about all this other great stuff we're getting to do. There's money there. Like I don't, like, you know, I tell the story all the time, you know, in my gardening classes and nurseries, I tell people like, do you guys know what a money tree is? So there are these money trees that like they wrap around and they kind of have the big broad leaves, you know, and people have them inside their houses. So we have a couple of those, and I bought one that was probably like that big, and now it's bigger than this roof, right? And it's in between my living room and dining room, and it's unreal, you know. And I compost it like twice a year, 3 times a year. And I compost tea it about every 90 days. And I just, you know, keep it clean, and you know, sing to it once in a while, and we kind of, in Chinese lore, you know, the money tree will bring you wealth and prosperity. So we kind of talked about that in my family, and we were all like, okay, so we're not going to like worry about money. We're going to let the money tree do it. And so we all agreed to that. And I have to tell you guys, you might want to get a money tree. It's doing a pretty good job. Money tree takes all the money stress. I don't have the money stress. It works really good. So that's kind of it, you guys. It's kind of like the Malibu Compost story, and you know, and that's kind of what we're doing, what we're trying to do, and I don't know if that gives you any insight, or you know, jars any questions or any thoughts or anything. But I'm happy to answer them if you have any questions, or you know, or Bob, if you have any questions off of this or whatever. But that in a half-hour nutshell is the Malibu Compost kind of deal.
Yeah. I guess for me, I'm kind of, while we got here, some practical knowledge of like your basic indoor grow, how you would use this. as far, just,
Okay. I would go ahead and use the compost. If you're going to use a soil mix, I'd go at 20%.
Okay.
To 25% on the mix. I think that's, and then, you can do like a, like a modified Coots mix if you're mixing up your own soil, or, a lot of guys that grow in a no-till style will do about 25% of Malibu into their mix. And, here's the thing you have to remember though, if you're going to do that, you have to aerate, so you might add to that mix either more pumice or more perlite because the compost is dense. It's heavy. So you want to go ahead and allow that to, and it holds moisture. Compost, good finished compost, and that's one of the things too, that differentiates Malibu, is that it is actually finished compost. So it's not a woody compost that's, still taking a lot of energy to break down and decompose once it's in your garden. So it holds moisture, so you want to go ahead and make sure that you can allow correct evaporation of the moisture, in the soil.
And do you recommend like top dressing throughout your grow, or is this it gets diminished, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah.
From your teas.
Well, the other thing too is like an indoor grow, right? We're mimicking nature, right? So we have to get you have to keep, and the microbes are breaking down the organic matter that you have in that grow, right? So you need to keep putting organic matter in there because you're not getting, unless you're letting your leaf drop and let it sit there, which is fine, which I like. But you need to feed the microbes and you need to add more organic matter. So top dressing, I always tell people the way I like to garden is I like to top dress lightly with frequency. And I like to run teas all the time. So I like, an indoor grow, start your teas at 3 to 4 weeks, run them through the cycle, foliar, at veg. And with a really light compost tea, like, a lot of people get like really intricate with their teas. I just go like compost, castings, kelp, and then I might flip a little bit of fish hydrolysate in there, and that's it. I go really light. Yeah, Jim.
Love the product. I have a farm out in the valley where I'm at who runs pretty much just you for teas. What do you suggest for him if you were in the room by the door? For a recipe for this season.
Okay. So are you
outdoor soil?
Outdoor soil.
And first year with an actual greenhouse cover, I'll probably run open ends.
Okay.
I just for the information, I ran for the first time when I ran into Jim. I went in. What am I going to do, big guy? This is what I got to do. I'm throwing 1,200 gallons or 600 gallons, 700 gallons of tea at a time to my 150 gallon pots. I went in there. This guy introduced me to booze. And I ran it the entire season and I killed it. Absolutely crushed it. And I have been preaching booze since, and to some indoor guys. Now I want to try to fine tune this and use this as my main
Are you in container outside, or are you going to be in?
I have 150 gallon pots.
150 gallon outside. Okay. So on your mix now, what was your mix? What was the consistency of your mix now?
I think I was using about 3/4. I don't know the weights, and I was using 3/4 of a bag to run 1,000 gallons of liquid, and I was adding kelp and meal as well.
All right. Are you?
That's my question.
Now, are you on your mix? It's in your containers. What's your soil mix?
That is Fox Farms. I use Fox Farms, and I've been just adding to that.
So what I would do with that, if you're going to continue using that on a large level, I would add that into the Fox Farm, just out the gate. And after years of like knowing guys in Mendocino, and Humboldt that actually that ran Fox Farm for forever, right, from the Samoa plant, like even when it was the original.
There was a couple rough years.
Yeah. So. If you mix that in about 1/3 of your mix, even 20-25% of that mix, right? That would be great, and then keep running with your teas. And if you want to dial in your teas a little bit further, I'll give you my info and we can go ahead and fine tune your tea program, for veg and flower. So that's fine. But get some of the compost, have that help start breaking down some of the stuff that's in there, and then do light top dressing with your teas.
That was my goal for this year.
It will change everything. You
Yeah.
know, and to me, you know, we were talking, you know, Jeremy and I were talking earlier, you know, like keeping it really simple. You know, the simpler that we can keep it, and the more close to biomimicry, to nature, like what is happening in nature. So when you're top dressing nightly,
and you mentioned smaller amounts. I'm a big believer in spoon feeding.
Yep.
Constant spoon feeding. I don't think you should dump a whole bunch at it and then take a bunch away, because that's not the way it works.
No.
So if you keep it at a level, you're not going to see those drastic changes, and you're not going to have those things happen so fast to you. Like you're either going to go up or down too fast. It's not.
I agree 100%, and I do this. Exactly what you're talking about. That's how I garden at my own home. So I don't like coming here and go like, oh, here's this thing, and you know, do this. Like this is how I garden at home. I'm a coffee gardener. I like to go outside with my cup of coffee. I'm a coffee drinker, and literally, like I'm always outside. I got a little pack, and I'm doing this. If you see me in my garden, it's coffee cup and this. This is what I'm doing, and then I'm looking at stuff. I'm looking for pests. I'm looking for disease. That's the other thing I'm doing. One of the things I love about growing organically is it forces you to look at your plants and to look at what's going on. Because, you know, otherwise, you know, we come from a very sleepy world of gardening. You know, go to a Home Depot, and if you want to see sleepy, you know, like look at all the crap they sell you, look at the people that are working in there, and ask them some questions on gardening, and you will get some really sleepy answers, like, you know, that like not aware at all. But when we're gardening organically and what you're doing, that's why I prefer giving much smaller, you know, trace amounts of things and letting that happen and let that uptake happen just real naturally, real easily. And also, the other thing I love about growing that way is you can, if something, whether it's a strain or whether, you know, you're having a weird season on tomatoes, you know, something might be doing a little, you know, something even atmospherically, whatever, it allows you to adjust. You know, you're never screwed like you are if you go, you know, big. You know, you can always go big if you want, if you need to, but you can always pull back. And so I like just going light, just out the gate, and just watching the plants develop, whatever it is. You know, that's how I like to do it.
How would you go about reclaiming the soil this year?
And you fed no nutrients?
No.
Okay. All right. So my favorite way of doing stuff, like honestly, is I'm a tarp guy. So I just take everything out on tarps and I dump stuff, and I, you know, add compost, and I'll add like Cascade Minerals. I'll add some kelp, I'll add some alfalfa, just really light base mix, just to recharge that soil, and just let it cook a little bit. Let it just kind of sit there, wet it down, let it kind of just do its thing. Let it.
How long?
Pardon me?
How long do you let it sit there? You know, we're always on a time crunch.
I know. you got 10 days, 2 weeks.
2-3 weeks.
Yeah, go 2 weeks, man. Like then you're good. You're fine.
And you can always add like Photo Plus or like labs or something to help speed the process up.
Yeah, the other thing I'm really into too, like I'm into EM1, so like I also use a lot of EM1. I like it a lot, so it's another thing too that you can inoculate with, you know, or you can even, but really keep it just simple, you know, just go with that. You can even add a little crustacean meal into it, you know. I mean, okay, so this becomes a modified Coots mix. You can add a little bit of neem into it, right? A little karanja. You can, and then what are you doing? And then in that mix, do you have pumice or perlite or anything in there?
Yeah, that was my first year running with that soil that I got put in the pots, and then I put up the greenhouse, and I'm in the process of moving my pots from one to the other. So when I pull the soil out, this is when I'm going to be messing with it. I have a big soil mixer available.
Perfect.
And
you got a batch mixer?
I got a big mixer. Yeah.
Okay, so you can use that, and then I would also add a little bit of aeration.
Yeah,
to it.
that's what I was going to add to that. So I know especially with the soil, does tend to pack a little bit more than some of the others. So I will add
and the difference with you know.
Could I add a vermiculite or a perlite or
Vermiculite holds water, perlite.
Oh, that's right. All right.
Yeah. And you can just go with pumice if you can get some pumice. I like pumice too.
Raw alfalfa straw, not the meal, but actual straw works real well with the fluff too. You know.
Yeah. So you can just add, just get yourself a little bit of aeration to it, you know, and that works great. When I'm doing mixes for outdoor, a lot of times I will use pumice, you know. Inside I use perlite. just because of weight, you know?
It's
The
better
weight.
for the planet too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perlite is not exactly a healthy thing to be produced. It's produced using an incredible amount of energy and
Yeah.
produces an incredible amount of CO2, whereas pumice is mined. So-
Mind. It's, and yeah, you know, pumice, the reason, you know, a lot of times you won't see pumice like in a bag soil mix is because of the weight. Because if you've got a compost and a casting and you have a bunch of organic matter in there, then you throw pumice in there, like, and it got, like, you know, sometimes soil gets wet, right, you know, at stores. You'd then have people like trying to lift an 85-pound bag of soil, and, you know, so it just doesn't, you know, pan out. But when we're mixing soils, I always mix soil using pumice.
Excellent.
You know, so and that's one of the nice things too. But like on the jobs we get to work with as consultants, I get to do soil mixes. You know, I mix soil all the time, just specific mixes depending on what I'm doing. You know, and it's cool. So yeah, you're in a good spot, and your stuff, since you didn't run newts, you don't have a, you know, an issue where you've got, you know, toxicity built up there. You're in a good place, man. So
Yeah, I
you
kept my numbers down and just, I don't know if it was luck or if it was the booze, but something went right.
Well, no, that's, and I mean, obviously, like, I love it.
Yeah.
And, you know, we know, you know, anyone loves to hear that about their product, but yeah, you're on a good path, and you know some people that are great people too that are steering you some, you know, good direction. So, yeah. So I'm a big target. I never waste soil. And soil that I take out of containers a lot. What I get to do is, because we have big raised beds on projects that we work with growing food. So what I do is I take that soil, that's that soil that we consider spent soil, and I use that in my mixes at 1/3 boo. I use 1/3 native soil, and I go ahead and use 1/3 of that soil that I just, you know, I'll add a little bit of the crustacean, a little bit of cascade mineral, a little alfalfa, throw it in a hole, mix it up, boom, gone. I've never planted an orchard with soil that I knew was safe, that we just re-amended, threw it in a hole outside, that didn't work perfectly. And because nature has a way of correcting itself, you know, that's the goal, is right away, you know, and that's why I'm using the native soil out of the hole. So, you know, for us, we've planted tons of orchards that way.
That's why I love outdoor.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was late because I really running on snow right now. Like when I try to talk to people about boo, sometimes I get pushback about the whole steer manure thing. How do I combat that?
First of all, it's not steer manure. Okay, so that's number one. So steer manure, which part of what you missed, Jim, is we talked about what the cows are fed. So Malibu Compost runs a genetic ID because the steers are basically fed GMO corn, soy, and alfalfa. Okay, the alfalfa in lesser amounts than the corn and the soy, which is not what they should be eating anyway. And secondarily, here's a big part of that too about the steer thing, and then I'll go into the other part of your question. But for us, we talked about intention and about like doing the right thing. So if you look at how those animals are treated, you know, in a giant feedlot, right? They're treated horrifically. And there's part of a mindset for me, like, you know, there are people that don't eat meat. There's people that eat meat. There's people that, you know, eat meat, that eat, you know, that are conscious of how the animal is treated, that they're going to eat, and they respect that, you know. So we only work with dairies that have the highest animal care because we care. You know, Boo, you know, became part of our family. Boo's kids are my responsibility, and Colin's and Malibu Compost and part of our family. And so when we've rescued cows, or been involved in rescues where we take cows from dairies that are organic dairies that aren't doing well, and rather than have those animals slaughtered, move them over to another dairy. So we use organic dairy cow manure, and that's really important because part of that goes back to biodynamics and goes back to what Steiner was talking about with the feminine energy of a mother dairy cow. So that's important to know. And then also knowing that their feedstock, what they're eating, is what they're supposed to eat. Our cows are mostly just out in pasture. And that's what they're doing. So, and they are, they're living a healthy, happy life. You see the cows all the time as you're passing, on the road out there. And, they're stoked, and that, I think that energy transfers into your garden. on a huge level. And if you haven't ever been to a slaughter auction or to a slaughterhouse, which I have been, those animals know, and the energy that is there is absolutely horrific. And I don't want that in my food. I don't want it in my children's food. I don't want that energy of a tormented, what I think is animal slavery. I don't want to, when I was talking about supporting things, I don't support that. Okay, so maybe this makes me crazy, but there's a reason I don't eat fast food. I don't support the industry because I don't like how the animals are treated that comes from. When I rescued Boo, she was called what's called a three-titter, meaning that one of her teeth had closed because they thought she had mastitis, right? We took her back to the farm after we rescued her and gave her a salt scrub, put her out in pasture. She was fine. You know, we transitioned her into an organic herd. And when I bought her at the rescue, the auctioneer had just said sold to beef, and she was going to fast food. And that's an animal that they thought had mastitis.
Right.
So that blows my mind, you know? So yeah, is our warehouse in Berkeley, are we, when I go to conventions and they see Malibu Compost and they always put that where you're from, Berkeley, and we start talking to people, think like, oh my God, these tree-hugging hippies, please help us, you know? But the truth is, like, you know what? I think you are what you eat. I think you are what you know, walk the walk, talk the talk, preach the preach. You know, and if you can't, then find something else. You know, do something else. Because that's why. So to me, it's not steer manure. It's actually truly 100% organic. It's real biodynamic. Colin adheres to Rudolf Steiner's principles. He was raised that way. So it's a very different product than when you're getting, you know, in a steer manure, chicken manure, other type of manure.
And it seems about stewardship too. You guys just screamed stewardship. Wow.
It's everything, right? I mean, a lot of people don't think we can do anything to fix the earth anymore, or that we can combat, you know, giant global companies, you know, that are taking over everything. They don't think you can do anything. And I go, you know what? If I really believe that, I wouldn't get up every morning and fight the fight that we fight. Because you know what? We're fighting those behemoths, those giants. We're fighting them every day. And by us saying like, hey, you know what? You don't have to do it that way. You know what? I tell people all the time at garden classes, you can go ahead and transition really simply. Transition, you know, and you know, it's Joel Salatin's whole thing. People say, you know, but growing organic is expensive. And Joel Salatin says, yeah, you checked the price of cancer lately?
Yeah.
You know,
one way or the other.
You know, and I look at that and I think that's a truth, you know, so I believe like, hey, I try to eat healthy, I try to like, you know, do people right, I try to, you know, my whole thing is, you know, my spiritual life, my family, you know, my job, my community. You know, if I stayed there, and not just me, if I stay there, I seem to be pretty good, I'm pretty okay. You know, if I deviate from that plan, you know, bets are off, man. You don't know where, you know, Randy might end up in, you know, Las Vegas, you know, who knows? Which I hate. That's like, for me, that's hell. Sorry if you guys are in Vegas. I have customers in Vegas. I don't know, there's something about the strip. I just can't handle it. Got anything else for me?
We're good to go. Sure. Is there a question still?
Yes.
How long does it take you to produce your compost?
It's generally about 6 months of the thermophilic phase. So that's you know 5 to 6 turns with the turner. So it gets up to 145, 150 degrees. We turn it. So yeah, at 160 you kill the beneficials, the bacteria. And then what happens is then it goes into a curing phase where we go ahead and let the temp start to drop. And what's really cool about that, about making compost, I'm glad you asked that, about making compost on the ground, on soil, instead of making compost like at a waste management facility or on a conventional area where you're on concrete. As the temperatures drop, then what happens is the microscopic fungi that's in the soil starts to come up into our windrows and eat the bacteria. And then larger microorganisms follow them up in there and start eating those guys, and they start pooping. And that shows up on our biological analysis. So what we do, and you can only put the preps in, which I'm not going to tell you when we do, that's proprietary, but when we do, it's during that phase. And so we let everything start to, go a little bit, more fungal. That's why there's a good balance of bacteria and fungi in our compost. So it takes about 8 months total for the total finish before it goes to screen. And that's why we can do, like, when I've had like olive orchards and stuff like that we're working on down in California, and I need a much more fungally dominant soil, I'll let the compost go another 6 months, and all of a sudden it starts becoming very fungally dominant, and it's perfect for that use. So it's really cool to see that. But yeah, that's most stuff that you get in a bag is weeks, months. It's not a month. It's not. That's why we always say it's finished, it's mature. It's and our labs, having 4 labs, tell us that at every level from what that lab is at, tells us that too, which is pretty cool.
I was going to say, I remember when I first met you, you were explaining the whole process to me, and you told me the levels of testing that you guys do to it to know that it's fully finished, and that the final stage you guys actually pop seeds, vegetable seeds, and I forget exactly what.
Cucumber. Yeah, we do cucumber.
One of the hardest to get to pop, in a hot soil or a hot compost mix, they won't.
Yep.
And I thought that was really interesting, and it kind of goes to the love that you put into the product, and I kind of feel like that's why, when people use that on their plant, they see that in their plants, and their reaction creates a love for the product. Not us, but the microbes that's in there and in the tea turned around an institutional rose garden in 90 days. So I saw it with my own eyes on a level where we were on Forest City for the city of Oakland with 5,000 roses on 8 acres. A rose garden that was about to have their accreditation taken away from them by the American Rose Society. We came in and we cleaned that place up. We pruned it down correctly. We brought our guys in that are incredible rosarians to work with us. I got a bunch of kids who the judge thought it would be a good idea for them to work on weekends in a garden, come out and. When I was handing them rakes and stuff, the guards that came off the bus is like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Yeah, these guys are gonna work, man." So we worked, we cleaned that whole place up. We compost teed everything, we composted it, and then we hit it again, and we sprayed everything with the teas. Literally, it was probably 101 days after the first time I ever saw that garden. The head of the American Rose Society walked the garden with me and a couple of other people that we work with out there, and she said, "This is amazing, what did you guys do?" She goes, "How did you do this?" And I said, "Actually, we didn't do anything, it was the microbes." I didn't know that she was a scientist, and she went, "That's a great answer." They kept their accreditation, and Oakland has kept us on ever since. So it can happen fast. If you give the soil, what it needs, the plants will get what they need. So it's, and I thank you guys all for being here today. It was really great. Bob, thank you for having us, and thank you guys and for supporting Malibu Compost.
Oh, thrilled to. We appreciate not just the information, but the good energy too. So thank you for being
You got it,
with us.
man. Thanks. Right on.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us, whoever's on out there.